June the 22nd, 2020, Munich. A man in a black turtleneck walks into a police station and turns himself in. 2 days earlier, he was the chief executive of the most celebrated technology company in Germany, a company worth more at its peak than Deutsche Bank. The press called him the German Steve Jobs. That same week, at a small airfield south of Vienna, his second-in-command pays two pilots €8,000 in cash, climbs into a private jet, and disappears. Their company has just admitted that €1.9 billion, a quarter of everything on its books, probably never existed. 6 years later, one of these men is still in a jail cell, waiting for a verdict. The other is in Moscow under state protection, because he was never just a businessman. This is Paper Empires. To understand how Germany fell in love with a fraud, you have to start with what Germany didn't have. By the late 90s, America had Silicon Valley. Germany had car factories and banks, proud, old, and slow. No Apple, no Google, nothing to point at when the future came up in conversation. Then, in 1999, in a suburb of Munich, a little company appears. It processes payments on the internet for the only two industries desperate enough to need it: pornography and online gambling. Respectable German business wants nothing to do with these customers, which means the little company has them all to itself. In 2002, the dot-com crash nearly kills it, and that is when a young Austrian consultant named Markus Braun arrives. He puts in his own money, takes the CEO chair, and begins telling the story. And it is a magnificent story, the end of cash, a digital payments empire for a digital century. Braun wears a black turtleneck, speaks in visions, smiles rarely, and the press writes the sentence he needs them to write. Germany finally has its own Steve Jobs. The company Wirecard starts to grow. It gets onto the stock exchange through the back door by swallowing the listing of a dead call center firm. No IP, oh no awkward questions. Then it buys payment companies across Asia, Singapore, Manila, Dubai, places where an auditor's phone call takes a very long time to be returned. And the numbers begin their march. Revenue up, profit up, around 30% growth year after year after year. No bad quarters, no stumbles ever. Real businesses breathe. Good years, bad years. Wirecard only ever climbed for 15 years, and almost nobody asked why. September the 24th, 2018, the Coronation. Wirecard enters the DAX, the index of Germany's 30 greatest corporations, and the company it pushes out is Commerzbank, a bank founded in 1870, a bank that survived 2 world wars, replaced by a payments firm from a Munich suburb. At the peak, Wirecard is worth €24 billion, more than Deutsche Bank itself. The share price touches €199. SoftBank, the biggest tech investor on the planet, writes a €900 million check. And when Chancellor Angela Merkel flies to Beijing, she personally raises Wirecard's business with the Chinese leadership. The state itself is now telling the story. There is just one problem. Half of the company does not exist. Here is how the machine worked, and notice how simple it is. Wirecard's real business, processing card payments in Europe, made very little money. Too many competitors, margins thin as paper. The spectacular profits came from somewhere else, from what the company called third-party acquiring. The claim went like this. In countries where Wirecard had no license to process payments, local partners did it on Wirecard's behalf, and Wirecard took a cut. A company called Al Alam in Dubai, Payeezy in Manila, Senjo in Singapore, tiny names nobody had ever heard of. And these 3 little partners, according to Wirecard's own accounts, generated half of all its revenue and nearly all of its profit. The money itself, piling up supposedly in escrow accounts in Asia, held by a trustee for safekeeping. Now watch what this structure achieves. The profit is always real on paper, and always somewhere you cannot check, always booming, always in another jurisdiction, another time zone, behind another trustee. Prosecutors now say much of that business simply never existed. Witnesses at trial went further. The partners were shells, quietly controlled from inside Wirecard itself. The machine did not make money. It made paper that looked like money, and it fed that paper to the one audience that wanted desperately to believe it: Germany. But machines like this have a weakness: people see things. Singapore, 2018. A young in-house lawyer named Pav Gill investigates a finance manager who is forging contracts and round-tripping money, moving the same cash in circles until it looks like revenue. His report goes up the chain. The investigation is smothered. Gill is pushed out. So he takes the documents. His own mother hides the copies, and he hands everything to a journalist in London. Dan McCrum of the Financial Times has been pulling at Wirecard's threads since 2015. In January 2019, he publishes the Singapore Files, the stock craters. And now comes the part of this story that should genuinely frighten you. Watch what Germany does next. BaFin, the German financial regulator, looks at a whistleblower, a journalist, and a company with 15 years of perfect numbers, and it concludes that the criminals are the journalists. It bans betting against Wirecard stock. The first time in German history a single company has been protected that way. Then it files a criminal complaint against the reporters. Dan McCrum now risks arrest in Germany for publishing the truth. Short sellers are hounded. Critics are followed by private investigators. The company no longer has mere believers. It has bodyguards, and they carry government badges. In the autumn of 2019, the Financial Times publishes internal spreadsheets suggesting the Asian profits are fabricated. Cornered, Wirecard hires a second audit firm, KPMG, to clear its name once and for all. KPMG spent 6 months asking one simple question: show us the money. The company cannot. June the 18th, 2020, the day the paper met reality. Wirecard's own auditors, EY, had signed off on its accounts for more than a decade. This year, at last, they do the one thing nobody had done in 20 years. They check the escrow accounts directly with the banks. 1.9 billion euros, supposedly sitting in 2 banks in Manila, a quarter of the entire balance sheet. The banks answer: there are no accounts. The documents are forgeries. Someone had typed the numbers and borrowed the letterheads. The Central Bank of the Philippines goes further. That money never entered the country's financial system. At all, ever. In a single day, Wirecard shares lose 2/3 of their value. June the 19th, Braun resigns, and Jan Marsalek, the chief operating officer, the man who ran the third-party business, the man who was always just about to produce the documents, tells colleagues he is flying to Manila to find the money. Instead, that night, he is driven to a small airfield south of Vienna, pays 2 pilots 8,000 euros in cash, and boards a private jet to Minsk. Someone plants fake entries in the Philippine immigration database, showing him landing in Manila, then leaving for China. A false trail for a ghost. He will surface later. In Moscow, we will come back to him. June the 22nd. The company states, in careful accountant's language, that the 1.9 billion euros likely never existed. That evening, Braun turns himself in. June the 25th. Wirecard files for insolvency, the first company in the history of the DAX to collapse while still inside it. The stock, €1.28, down 98% in a week. Germany's Steve Jobs, it turns out, had been running Germany's Enron. Now count what fell on the people underneath. Roughly 50,000 shareholders filed claims. Pensioners, teachers, ordinary German savers who had bought the one tech champion their country ever produced. Their claims, more than 15 billion euros. What was actually left in the estate? About 650 million, 4 cents on the euro. 5,800 employees in 26 countries had spent years working for profits that were a story. Most lost their jobs within months. EY, the auditors who missed it all, were fined and banned from taking on new listed companies in Germany for 2 years. And BaFin, the regulator that defended the fraud and hunted the journalists, was torn apart and rebuilt by law. Its complaint against Dan McCrum was quietly dropped. He collected journalism awards for the reporting Germany had tried to criminalize. Marcus Braun has been in a cell since July 2020, 6 years and counting. His trial has run for more than 260 days, with no verdict in sight. He insists he is innocent, a victim, he says, of the man who fled. And that man. In 2024, investigative journalists confirmed what the spy agencies already suspected. Jan Marsalek had been working with Russian intelligence for roughly a decade. The entire time, he was running the operations of a DAX company. From Moscow, he directed a spy ring in Britain. 6 agents, jailed in London in 2025 for more than 50 years combined. A network that targeted, among others, the very journalists who investigate men like him. The chief operating officer of Germany's proudest tech company was a Russian asset. And the 1.9 billion euros has never been found, because there was never anything to find. Here is the truth at the center of this story. Wirecard did not fool Germany. Germany fooled itself. A country ached for proof that it could build the future. And when a man in a black turtleneck offered that proof, the auditors, the regulator, the chancellor, and 50,000 shareholders chose, year after year, not to open the box. The numbers were checked by everyone and verified by no one. A paper empire does not need to be believable. It needs to be needed. Next time on Paper Empires, a 29-year-old in cargo shorts builds a crypto empire, buys Washington's affection, and loses $8 billion of other people's money. The boy genius, FTX,